1 Nephi Chapter 4. And it came to pass that I spoke again to my brothers, saying, Let us go back up to Jerusalem and be faithful in following the commandments of the Lord, as God is more powerful than anything on earth, definitely mighty and more powerful than Laban. Forget 50 or 10,000 of his men. Ponder this. What does this tell you about Nephi's faith in God and his approach to challenges? Verse number 2. Let us go to Jerusalem having the strong faith that Moses has had, that allowed him to order the waters of the Red Sea to part so the people of Israel could pass through, and then the waters could close over on the armies of the Pharaoh, their enemies who were following them. Ponder this. Where in your life do you need to be faithful like Nephi and Moses and speak and act with a conviction of your faith? It's Nephi's faith that allowed him to succeed. He further counseled them, saying, You know that the story of Moses is true, and you know that the angel came and spoke to both of you. So why are you worrying? Let us go, for the Lord is able to save us and destroy Laban, the same way he saved the Israelites from the Egyptians. But even after I had said all this, they were still worried, and they still continued to murmur, but they followed me until we reached the gates of the city of Jerusalem. And as it was night time, I asked them to hide near the walls, and I crept into the city and went to the house of Laban. Ponder this. Nephi truly behaves like a leader. He recognizes that his brothers are still afraid, so he takes over and goes in to do what needs to be done. And I trusted in the Spirit to lead me to where and what I was supposed to do. I had no plan of my own on how to succeed or how to proceed. Ponder this. When God asks us to do something, can we go and do it without worrying endlessly about how to do it, but rather understand that He will help us find a way to get it done? Verse 7. So even though I had no plans or ideas about what I would do next, I went towards the house of Laban, and as I did, I saw a man who was lying drunk on the path in front of me. Verse number 8. And when I reached him, I found that it was Laban. Verse 9. And I saw a sword, and I drew it out of its covering sheath, and the hilt or the base of the sword was pure gold and made with fine work, and the blade was of the best steel. Ponder this. When Nephi draws Laban's sword out, he sees that it is a very valuable thing made of precious metals. What do we see in Laban? He liked and he surrounded himself with material things. He was greedy. He took away Lehi's treasures even though he had many of his own. He didn't keep the commandments of the Lord by coveting things that belonged to someone else. He drinks himself into a stupor. Ponder this. Laban is a man in a position of power. He seems to be a leader or ruler of some sort in Jerusalem. When leaders are wicked or bad in their choices, the people of the land also get inspired to be the same way. And this, of course, it carries through into anything that we might be leading, whether it's a school and we're leading children, or whether it's an office where we lead a team, or it's a family where one of the parents behaves a particular way. The children will also be impacted or inspired or influenced by the way the parents react, right? Verse 10. And as I did this, I was told or directed by the Spirit to kill Laban. But I just didn't feel right doing so. I had never killed or hurt a man before, and I asked if I could please not kill him. Ponder this. Killing a person. When you consider that it's a life that you're taking away, a life like yours, it's a really hard thing. God forbids us from killing anyone, deliberately or intentionally, in His 6th commandment, and keeping God's commandments and keeping himself pure is something that is very important to Nephi. So this must have been such a moral dilemma for Nephi. Verse 11. But the Spirit told me again, The Lord has delivered Laban into your hands. And also I knew that he had tried to kill me and he had taken away all our things. Most of all, I knew that Laban had not listened to or followed any of the commandments of God. Verse 12. And the Spirit told me again to slay Laban, as God had brought him to you for that purpose. Verse 13. The Spirit further told him that the Lord kill the wicked so that his righteous path and purposes could be fulfilled or achieved. It is better that one evil person should die than an entire nation should die because of their unfaithfulness and wickedness. Ponder this. God knew that he would have to tell Nephi over and over through the Spirit why he wanted him to kill Laban. He knew that Nephi would be struggling with feelings of conflict about it. His repetitive advice ends with pointing out to Nephi that killing Laban will help saving an entire nation of people who might have otherwise followed in Laban's ways and been lost to the kingdom of God. Verse 14. And when I, Nephi, heard these words, I remembered what God promised me in the wilderness, that in so much as thy seed shall keep my commandments, they shall prosper in the new land. And Nephi realized that they could not keep the commandments of God according to the law of Moses if his descendants didn't have the law itself to follow. Verse 16. And he knew that the law was engraved on the plates of brass that Laban had. Verse 17. And I knew then that the Lord had brought Laban to me for this cause and purpose, so that I could get the records. Ponder this. The Spirit reminded Nephi that he needed to get the records so his descendants would be able to have a record of the laws of the Israelites dating back to the time of Moses, so they could and would follow God's commandments written on them and then be blessed by the Lord. Verse number 18. So I obeyed the Spirit, grabbed Laban by the hair, and cut off his head with his own sword. Verse number 19. And after I had done this, I took off and put on Laban's clothes and armor. Verse number 20. And after this, I went to Laban's treasury. As I walked towards the treasury, I saw Laban's servant who had the keys to it, and I told him in a voice like Laban's to come to the treasury with me. Verse 21. And the servant assumed that I was Laban because I was wearing his clothes and armor. 22. And he spoke to me about the Jewish elders, knowing that his master had been out at night drinking with them. Ponder this. Laban was drunk. Why were the Jewish elders drinking and carousing with him? 23. And I spoke to him as if I was Laban. 24. And I said that I would carry the engravings of brass to my brothers who were outside the walls. 25. And I told him to follow me. 26. And the servant, thinking I was talking about the brothers of the church in Jerusalem and that I was his master Laban, followed me. 27. And he spoke many times about the Jewish elders as I went to my brothers outside the walls. 28. And when Laman and my brothers, Lemuel and Sam, saw me, they were frightened as they thought I was Laban and that he had killed me, Nephi, and now had come to kill them. 29. And then I called them, and they heard me, and they came back. 30. And when the servant of Laban saw my brothers, he became frightened and was about to run away from me and return to Jerusalem. 31. And I, Nephi, being a large and powerful man, having received strength from the Lord, was able to catch him and hold him so he couldn't run away. 32. And I told him that if he would listen to me, to my words, I would promise him that we would spare his life. 33. And I promised him that he didn't have to be afraid, and that he would be a free man like all of us if he would come down with us into the wilderness away from Jerusalem. 34. And I spoke to him, saying that the Lord has commanded us to do this, and shouldn't we be keeping the commandments of the Lord? So if you come away with us to my father's place, you shall have a home with us. 35. And then Zoram, the servant of Laban, agreed, and he promised that he would come with us. And he swore that he would stay with us from that time onwards. 36. The reason we wanted him to stay was because we were worried that the Jews would find out where we had gone and come after us to destroy us. 37. But after Zoram swore to us that he would join us, we were no longer afraid of that. 38. And then we took the plates of brass and the servant of Laban and went back into the wilderness to the tent of our father Lehi. Do read the description box because I sometimes put the questions in there. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. See you in the next one, chapter 5.